Hello, everybody, and welcome to my session. Welcome everybody who's brave enough to come here so early in the morning and hear a little bit about promotional content. I think that is still a bit niche, even among growth marketers on mobile, but I think it needs a little bit more attention because it really provides a wonderful results if you only can nail it right. So my name is Michał Mróz. This is me, and I'm a head of ASO and also a growth manager of Fishing Clash in 10 Square Games. I've been working in 10 Square Games for 7 years, and for much of this time, I was working also on promotional content for our top titles like Fishing Clash, Hunting Clash, Wings of Heroes, and several others. And this might be a little bit important towards this presentation because I'm going to show you a little bit of real-life examples, a little bit of data, and remember that all of these data are coming from these games. And we mostly do simulation games, so everything can be a little bit skewed towards this kind of audience, but this is the data at the same time that is general enough that I think everybody can really relate to. So how are we going to move through promotional content today? We start with a very basic explanation of what promotional content really is. Then we move to the topic of measurement, because having promotional content is one thing, but assessing results is the other thing. Then we go into the meaty part about data and what you can really achieve based on the real-life examples that we did in the past. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about promotional content as a team effort, because in the end, promotional content is not something that you can do on your own. It's something that you have to collaborate with a lot of different people, from localization to graphic designers to product team. So it's a little bit tricky, and because of that, I think it needs a proper process. And then I'll try to explain how it can be built to make it easier to really put it into your own pipeline at your own teams. And then, of course, we go for a summary. So, what is promotional content? And my first question is, do you really know what is promotional content? Have you ever seen it on Google Play Store? Like, how many of you think that you were exposed to promotional content so far? Can you raise your hand? Okay, not a few of you. But the thing is that probably you don't know what really promotional content is, because if you have Android device, then this is something that you're exposed to from the very beginning. Because this is basically this kind of a widget that consists of image or video, then tagline, that is like just a headline to what the promotional content is about. Sometimes there is also description or part of this description. It's not always available, like in this example. It's just depending on what algorithm on Google Play decides. Then there is something simple as a game icon and a CTA button that can encourage you to play, to update your game, or to download if you haven't had it before. There are several categories of promotional content. So you can have time-limited events. So basically, whatever you have in your game, whatever event you have, and something that is time-limited, you can promote it with promotional content. You can promote every new content. So for example, new maps, locations, whatever. Major updates. So for example, you introduce new feature to your audience, and then you can promote it as a major update. You can promote offers. So everything from battle passes to discounts on your regular in-app purchases, up to even free gifts, some rewards. And with offers, it's even better than with other types of promotional content, because here you can target not only all users, but you can target also new users versus existing users. So you have even more opportunities to target your content. And then there is also an option to promote pre-registration campaigns, but this is a bit different types of beast and something worth of another session, so we'll save it for another time. When it comes to targeting, because let's say you decide that you want to do this promotional content thing, there are wide opportunities to promote this. Because you can go with up to 176 countries. You can go with up to 86 languages. And like I said, with offers, you can target even different kind of users. And then what's even better, you have several surfaces on the store when this promotional content is appearing. And let me tell you a bit more about these surfaces. So for example, this promotional content can appear on your homepage. You can see here. Then you can have it on your store listing page with a little bit different format, that you have a square image, a tagline, and description. Then, when you click on store listing page on this promotional content, you can launch the detail page, and then you can see your beautiful artwork in the full glory, and then the full description, full tagline. So if a user wants to know a little bit more about this before he launched the game or he download the game, then this is the page to actually hit. Then there is also an Events tab. But there is a little asterisk here, because Events tab is not available everywhere. It's available in the US, UK, in general, Western Europe, Japan, Hong Kong. It's not available in Poland, so you won't find it here. And then, probably one of the most important placements, search results. Why it's so important? Because when you have promotional content and when you put it in your search results, then it becomes your very first visual that users see when they search for your game. So it's not going to be trailer anymore, it's not going to be a first screenshot anymore, it's going to be a promotional content. And that can really drive conversion rate up or down depending on how well you do it. So be careful with it whenever you do it, because you can see results changing even beyond what you expect from promotional content. But in general, what is really important to say that promotional content overall is a new and very enticing way to engage users with the content that you have in their game. Because previously, you could, of course, tell your story through screenshots, through descriptions, but descriptions are not that read often by users, especially in the gaming industry. But now you can show particular events, particular updates, and you can really customize it with your artworks, and it really changed the way of how you engage with users. But this is one thing. Promotional content itself is a one thing and a way to engage your users. But then there is the second thing that are featurings. And by featurings, I mean a big promotional campaigns that let you organically, without any spend, acquire a lot of users from different verticals. And before 2023, the featuring process on Google Play was quite complicated. Usually, you had to have your Google Play rep, you have to work with him, pitch some kind of update to him. And then there was a review process, and the review process was also quite complicated. It could take even weeks before you had your featuring on the store. And then Google Play decided on everything, from dates to a list of countries when this promotional content is available. I mean featuring, because it wasn't promotional content back then. And then you could only rely on your own assets from the store, like icons. Then afterwards there was a change, and they also showed your screenshots and then trailers. But in general, all the artwork was pulled from the store. And what was also a very bad thing is that the targeting was quite poor, because all your featurings was shown in the collection on the main page that was called New and Updated Games. And then this collection was only approached by users who, well, are looking for something new, but they are not sure. So they usually downloading the game, checking it, and many of them were just removing them right after. So every featuring was like, you could see downloads spiking right here, but conversion rate and retention was going there. And it wasn't really cool. But then, at the beginning of 2023, Google Play introduced the change that really changed the whole thing. So since then, we had this promotional content as a main way of featuring the game. So like you already know, we can use customized artworks. We can use customized taglines, descriptions, so you can really tell the story about this particular events or this particular update directly to your players. And targeting is much better, because right now you can see it on many different surfaces, and you are targeted by your interests, you are targeted by the games that you have, games that you owned in the past. They target you because you liked something or you search for something. So in general, targeting is much better, and we see also this in results. Because when we see right now in conversion rates or retention during these featurings, we don't see any significant drop, and sometimes we see considerable uplift. But the thing is right now the targeting is much better. What's even better? When it comes to the past, before 2023, we had only one featuring request per quarter, and now we have 4. So you have 4 different opportunities to showcase your cool events, your cool updates to your audience, which is pretty neat, I would say. And yeah, so this is another thing that you can do with promotional content. You can have these featurings, and then we go to another point, which is measurement, because having new cool artworks, new cool way to feature your games is one thing. But then think about how you can really measure that, because you will always have these questions coming from the top. Okay, you've got this cool new thing, but how it really works for us? So we can start with first major way, because there are 2 major ways to actually measure the promotional content effect. And first thing is just to measure the promotional content itself. Google Play Console introduced 3 metrics just for this purpose, and they are quite self-explanatory. So for example, you have acquisitions, which are new users who acquired through promotional content, through the CTA button on the card. Then you have app opens, which are also users who had the game before but opened them through promotional content because they found it quite interesting. And then updates, which is quite similar because these users had your game before, but they couldn't open it before making an update. And then all of these are turned into converters. And converters is a main metric here to assess your success. Then you can also, of course, calculate the conversion rate of this promotional content. So just if you divide converters by viewers, then you can see how engaging is your promotional content. If you want some benchmarks, we consider something around 1.5% as something good. 2% of conversion is something very good, and everything beyond is excellent. Because here we really talk about getting a lot of views, and not a lot of them are converting, but because this is so big mass of people who are exposed to promotional content, even 2% of conversion is really good. What is important when we talk about promotional content is that here we measure only traffic coming through these cards, coming through these interactions with CTA buttons. So that's important that even users who are coming to your store page through paid acquisition campaigns can be attributed to this kind of traffic. Because even when they hit from the paid acquisition, but when they looked at promotional content surface, hit it, and downloaded through it, they can be attributed to paid acquisition. So here it's the view is a little bit more blurred because you don't really see the full organic results. And if you want to dive deeper, then these reports can offer you a few breakdowns, particular to check events by events or countries by countries. But this is one thing about measuring conversions, but you can also measure your engagement. And this is also something that is offered directly in Google Play Console. So you can have this uplift metric. And this is basically how Google Play calculates that you have users who went to the game after engaging with promotional content versus users who went to your game without interacting with promotional content, and they will measure how active they were for how many days, how was this relation between those who engaged with promotional content versus those who didn't engage. And for example, in this particular example, we had a 20% of uplift for positively for those who engage with promotional content. So it was quite a nice result. But this is the first thing. This is measuring just promotional content. But then, like I said before, promotional content is also a new way to make your game featured on the Google Play Store. And this is the other thing, because when you measure for a featuring purpose, you will check only the Explore channel. So then you, for sure, exclude all the paid acquisition, which is quite important. And you also exclude here acquisitions through search, which is branded search right now. And since 2024, Google Play also offers you a quite unique way to check what was your uplift, because they already say that, hey, your promotional content during this part, this is something that is shown here with the arrow, provided you a particular uplift in this X number. Is it trustworthy? I think more or less yes. I usually also check it against my own numbers. So for example, I'm getting the baseline value here. Oh, this wasn't intended. I'm getting the baseline value here versus the value from the featuring here, and I'm comparing how much of an uplift we really had. And here, in measuring this kind of measuring featurings through this particular report, you can also dive deeper into countries, languages, but you can also divide your users on new and returning users, which is also quite useful, because then you can see that, hey, my promotional content maybe engage pretty well with those users who already had the game and who knows what my game is about, but then maybe not necessarily was doing well when it comes to new users. So maybe I need to change the messaging or change the artworks and experiment with it to see how it really works with different kind of players. Because like with everything you do on your mobile acquisition efforts, you have to really try to tailor your efforts to your audience. Then we go to another topic, a very interesting topic, because you go to the product and see, hey, we did this promotional content, it converted super well. We provided you X number of thousands of installs. But then somebody from the product says, okay, but how much did we earn through this? And then the answer is not that great, because right now, as of May 2024, there's no direct way to blend your promotional content or featuring data with your financial data. And that's quite a problem whenever you talk with a product, because they also want to know, you also want to know how much revenue you can bring through this. And it's not that easy to measure that. What you can do? You can build a model. You can build a model. So for example, it can be as simple as, let's say you know from your promotional content reports that 25% of new users was exposed to this. So maybe then you can also go into your financial data and check how much revenue you've got from these new cohorts, and maybe you can just estimate that 25% of it came from promotional content. But this is a very simple thing. You can go country by country, and if you have a BI team, you can go with much more sophisticated model. What I say is it's really good to have something, some kind of model to really get back to the product team and say like, okay, we estimate that from this promotional content, from this featuring campaign, we acquired these users and they earned this kind of revenue. But it's always estimate, so you always have to take it with a grain of salt. It's never going to be very detailed, very granular, as long as Google Play didn't release an update that would let us measure it officially. And then another interesting topic about promotional content is experimenting. You do love to experiment with your store listings assets, right? Who likes to experiment with them? Okay, I see not a lot of you. But in general, when it comes to promotional content, experimenting is also not that easy, because there is no way to experiment in a direct way, like we do with screenshots, descriptions, and so on and so forth, because you can't just simply create one promotional content and then add two different, for example, artworks and check them A versus B. So you can see that B outperforms A, and then, okay, for the rest of the campaign, you will just use B. This is not possible. unfortunately. Something like this could be possible with third-party testing tools. I think I don't have to call any names here because there are not a lot of them, but they will, or they are already, have this feature to check promotional content. But as always with third-party tools, you have to have an extra budget for it. So it's a quite concern. But it doesn't mean that you can't test anything. Because you can test, for example, different styles of artworks. And for example, here you can see 4 different ways that Hunting Clash try to introduce new animals to the game. And you can see that the way we did, it's totally different. You can have different messaging. Also, if you can see the taglines here and a part of the descriptions, we also try to target our users in a very different way. But this is not everything. You can also, for example, check video versus no video. Usually adding an artwork is the simplest way, but video can tell the story better. But not always, because not always people are keen to watch the video. Sometimes they don't have a Wi-Fi, everyone don't to interact with any videos. So you can also test your promotional content in this manner. So video versus no video. Then you can check offers. Like I already said, that you can, for example, get different discounts. You can show gifts. You can show, for example, some special offers for subscriptions. So for example, you offer your already existing users, maybe you have an anniversary and you offer them 2 months for the price of 1. And that's something that should really work. Then you have offers for new and returning users. This is also something connected because, like I said, here you can target different kind of users. And you probably, from your different experiments, even with product, you know that new users and returning users are behaving a bit differently. So you can also target them in a different way. And then also you can try to mix different promotional content cards. Because, for example, you can create one promotional content card that is featured and acquire a lot of extra downloads, but you can also add something that is not featured, just another layer of promotional content that, for example, show your offer, your battle pass, your subscription offer, and then the first one will be a major traffic driver, and the second one should be shown quite close to it, so users will also interact with it, and they will get another information about that something cool is happening in the game. It's not only because of your update of event, but there's also something cool happening when it comes to your offers. And that brings us to the third part of these presentations. So what you can actually achieve with promotional content, and then we go into some data, some charts that I hope will be even more interesting. But first, before we go even into the land of charts, there is a reminder, because whatever you work with algorithm, usually on Google Play it also requires you to take care of your app quality, because algorithms also pay a very big attention to how your quality works, especially for Android Vitals, but not only this. You have to take care that your ratings are high. So for example, they should be at least at the level of 4 stars, and if they can be 4.5, this is even better. You have to look at your Android Vitals. So for example, your crash rates and your ANR rates, which stands for app not responding, are below bad behavior threshold. Of course, from time to time, they can be a bit up, and it shouldn't harm you so much. But if you constantly are above the bad behavior threshold, your discoverability would be definitely limited. You should also take care that you have a big internal score from the Google Play about keyword relevancy. This is not something that is widely available, but your descriptions from promotional content should be somehow familiar with those who you have on your which you have on your store listings. So algorithm can also see that, okay, this is the content that is really similar to what we have in the game. Of course, velocity of downloads is also important. So the more downloads you have, the more you can signal to algorithm that something cool is happening with your game, the better. And it's crucial to also have a good conversion rate, because of course, if you have a 3%, it's quite hard to convert it to downloads, and it's much easier when you have a 30% of conversion rate. And yeah, well, let's go to the chart. This is the first chart, and here you can see like different kind of games from our portfolio and how they performed because of different kind of support they have. So for example, with the dark red, you can see that we have a game that has a very good quality. It has ratings above 4.5. There's no issues with Android Vitals, and we also bring extra paid acquisition budgets. And you can see that with this kind of support, we can also reach this kind of organic uplifts whenever we had promotional content in the past year. Then we have a black line that is quite below. Okay, here. So this kind of a game is also of great quality. Also have a very good ratings, have no issues with Android Vitals, but the velocity of downloads is much lower, also because we don't have any paid acquisition here. So for example, here we will be only able to acquire this kind of uplift and this kind of uplift, and then this one was a bit bigger and lasted for a longer period of time, maybe because we already accumulated some traffic here and the quality was still there. But there was no paid acquisition, no extra velocity of downloads, and because of that, the effect was also much lower. But it doesn't mean that you have to always just push your paid acquisition, because here we have a third kind of a game that has some kind of paid acquisition in it, and it performs worse than the one that doesn't have any support from the paid acquisition team. But what is also important for this kind of game, that it has lower quality, because here we have a rating something between 4 and 4.5, and occasionally we also have some issues with Android Vitals. And probably because the quality is not that great, we could see only uplifts like this, like this, like this, and like this. And that's why I'm telling you that app quality is very important in the whole process. And if you have a very good quality game, then you can reach much higher, much bigger organic uplifts than if you have some issues. So it's really important to work on it. Then this is another example. This is a other game, and you can see a chart that is spanning for over a year, and how we really scaled up our organic traffic, because this is traffic only from Explore, from Google Play Console. So only exploration through the store. And for example, you see that we started our promotional content here, and we got some first initial uplift here and there. Then we've got something bigger here and there. And here, we flopped. For some reason, we probably didn't really convey a good message. Then we have another big uplift here, and here it was even bigger. And afterwards, we also see uplifts of this kind. And what I'm also marked here is a keyword update made by their ASO team here. And why I'm telling this to you, because this is a working hypothesis. I don't really know, of course, how algorithm Google Play works. But I assume that it really draw users from some kind of pools, let's say, and these pools are limited by the keywords you have on your store listing. But then if you made a keyword update and you add some different keywords into your listing, especially to title or short description, then algorithms are signaled to look for people from other pools, maybe better, maybe worse, but they're trying to acquire a different set of users. And what we saw here, and what we saw also in other games with such a similar ASO updates on keywords, is that afterwards we saw bigger uplift that was not available to us before. So this is something that is still worth A/B testing, and if you want to A/B test, I'm also keen to hear what would be your results. But I think this is something that is really happening with the algorithm, and this is something that is really worth to pursue. Because once again, this is something that you can do absolutely free. Then, Another topic, promo content across the world, because you can see that uplifts was quite significant through promotional content. But what is the mix of countries? So let's say we have a tier 1 countries. And if you don't know the definition, we call tier 1 countries the ones that are performing the best when it comes to revenue that brings us a lot of paying users, and the one that usually works on high-end devices and are generally of the best quality, especially when it comes to LTV. So let's say we have this pool of tier 1 countries, and what do you think? How much of share of this tier 1 users coming from these tier 1 countries was in the whole pool of all users? How much in percentage could come from tier 1 countries? How much? 8. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, so the first colleague was quite right. We've got only 8% coming from tier 1 countries, and then 92 coming from the rest of the world. And if you want to look at acquisitions by countries, then you see that, for example, the major uplift was coming from countries like Indonesia, India, and Brazil. Then you also have some tier 2 and tier 3 countries, and then the only one country from the tier 1 pool is United States with just 2.5% share. This is average for every promotional content that we ran last year. But this is just the one way of measuring that, the measuring through promotional content. But then we also have featurings, so everything that happens with promotional content and beyond. So what do you think? How much share of tier 1 countries would be here? Only explore traffic, only featurings, no paid acquisition. Any numbers to drop?
5%.
It's similar. It's similarly only 8% for tier 1 countries and 92% for rest of the world, which once again we have this Pac-Man simply swallowing tier 1 countries. And then when we look at composition of markets here, once again we have a golden triangle of India, Indonesia, and Brazil, then some other tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 countries, and only United States represent the tier 1 markets with, once again, 2.7%. And what does it really mean for you as a promotional content makers? First of all, your revenue will never match your downloads uplift, because this set of markets won't provide you such a significant uplift from the revenue side, right? You can try different tactics on monetization tier 2 and tier 3 countries. You can try to exclude them, but anyway, you will never match this kind of uplift when it comes between revenue and downloads. And the other side of the thing is that these users are mostly coming from low-end devices. So it might happen that your game is ready to acquire thousands of users coming from from the tier 1 countries, but not necessarily from tier 2 and tier 3 countries. And this is another example from the past, from one of our games. Here you can have the bad behavior threshold at 0.47%, and one of the uplift that we have during the featuring. So you can see that from a baseline, downloads grew a lot for around 2 weeks. But at the same time, our ANR rate, app not responding, also grew a lot. And the game was fixed then, somehow here, but it was already quite a long period of time when the game wasn't working well, when it produced a lot of issues. Of course, rating also suffered. And in the long term, it wasn't really great for organic discovery, because like I said, organic discovery can be limited by Google Play if you don't produce good results from your app quality side. So what you see here is something that you really would like to avoid. This kind of uplift in ANR rates or crashes rates. What you can do with it? Of course, the simple thing is to exclude all those countries, like India, Indonesia, Pakistan, and so on and so forth. But I would say it's just a temporary solution because it means that the issue is somewhere there. So it's better first to fix the game and then think about how you can monetize on these users, because it's probably no really surprise that for most of these countries, IRPU is something around 2 cents, 5 cents maybe. So it's not really it's not really a force that you would drive your monetization. But then there are also different ways of trying to monetize on these users. Sometimes you can see on these markets something that is not very obvious. Like, for example, guys from Indonesia don't have a mean to pay with a service that is familiar to them. You will offer them just a very generic list of services, or they just can pay through Google Play, which is maybe not a best option for them to do. And you have to think about some other means out of the box of how to monetize on these users. But in general, you really wouldn't like to go with something like this. But it's not all doom and gloom when it comes to tier 1 markets. And this chart shows it pretty well that when it comes to uplift coming from tier 1 markets, comparing to baseline before the promotional content, before the featuring, it's still quite high. Why it's happening? Because in the normal period of time when nothing is really happening, it's much harder to acquire organic traffic, right? And then when this kind of uplift is happening, it's much higher than it is in tier 2 and tier 3 countries, when usually nobody is really competing for this organic traffic, and it's quite easy to get a good chunk of it. And when you look, once again, for our data, for our games from the past year, and if you look for tier 1 countries, then again, you can see, for example, that for United States, the uplift was averagely almost 250%. And for the most of the other tier 1 markets, it was always at least triple-digit uplift. The only issues that we really had was with Korea, Republic, and Japan, but these countries are very specific, and we also have a hard time to nail them culturally, so it's a quite of a challenge. But what I'm telling you here is that you can still have a considerable uplift coming from tier 1 markets, like the United States, like the UK, like Germany, but you have to be aware that if you have, for example, a great uplift from promotional content that gives you 100K of extra downloads, then maybe 8K or 10K will be coming from tier 1 markets. And your revenue will be also uplifted similarly. So it's not going to be like, because in product you can sometimes see that, okay, you have a 200% uplift in downloads, so maybe we should have 200% of uplift in revenue, but it's not working like this. So manage your expectation and manage their expectation that it's not going to be like this. And one another interesting thing is that if you have a very good app quality, and if you have a very good promotional content, and if you merge it with, for example, some other stuff like influencer marketing campaigns with some brands, or good performing social media posts and collaborations, then you can really do wonders even from the perspective of app category. Because you can see that in the past, when it comes to simulation games category, free, not grossing, free, one of our games was quite on a position that is not even visible. But then, during just one promotional content, we got this uplift, and then our category ranks also grew up to position 2nd, 3rd, and then we fell. But then we started to do more promotional content here, here, and here, and actually we started to be visible on category ranks much higher. And if you know that users are also looking for these category ranks organically, and this is another way of free traffic. So this is also something interesting for you to pursue, that from this perspective, you can not only acquire users through promotional content, through featurings, but through also another means, which are category ranks. Because like I said, here is another uplift, and here is even longer, because we did 2 promotional content campaigns in a very short period of time. And it seems like when you can prolong it this way, you can also get some extra uplift here. Okay, all right. So we've got talk about data, what it is. Now let's talk about how you can do it with your team. So first of all, this might sound like a simple thing, but it's probably one of the hardest. So you, as a marketers or something from a growth team, had to sit down with guys from the product team and create one roadmap. Many times I see that product creates one roadmap and marketing creates one roadmap, and they are not aligned. So here, to have a success, you have to create one common roadmap, and you both have to pursue it. Then it comes to the topic of production, of delivery of the assets that you need. For example, if you have to promote your next update or your next event, you have to know what to promote, what kind of artwork you can have, and what's your really target audience. Then, probably in growth, at least in our example, it is in growth, you have to push it to graphic designers, because all the promotional content have some specific requirements. They are not super complicated. You can learn it very quickly, but you have to adhere to them to make sure that this promotional content will look very good on the store, and because there are some, for example, safe areas that you have to remember. It shouldn't take you much time, but it's also an important part. Then localization and culturalization. This is something that is a very big effort, but it's also very important. Of course, sometimes it's better to go for the fewer countries, but better localized, than just going worldwide and localized on, I don't know, 50 languages, just sacrificing quality. But this is a topic that people are more engaged when they really see quality in your promotional content, so take care of it. Then another thing is review and release, and that's really easy peasy, because review is super straightforward and release is just afterward. But then comes another very important part, so measurement that we've been talking about before, and then you have to gather all those numbers and go back to the product team and say, hey, this is what we see, let us tell us what you see from your perspective, and we can maybe draw some conclusions that could make our promotional content strategy even better in the future. From this roadmap, I think one of the most important things is this calendar. So, like I said in the past, we have 4 featuring requests every quarter, so it's good to plan at least those 4. Then you have, it's very good to also have like 2 or 3 normal promotional content cards with updates and events, just to signal the algorithm that something cool is happening in the game all the time. If you work with algorithms, it's really worth to just tell them that, okay, something is happening. And then, whenever you have a relevant offer, whenever it's going to be an extra month of subscription or free gift or whatever, it's also worth to add and get some another converters. And when it comes to calendar, it's worth to remember at least about a couple of events that you wouldn't like to miss out. So, for example, you have Lunar New Year in February. You have Ramadan this year in April. You have Golden Week in Japan. This is the best monetizing event in the year when it comes to Japan. You have also US Independence Day in July. That's something that you would really like to target when you have a big audience from the US. You can go for Halloween. You can go for Thanksgiving and Black Friday. This is the major opportunity to monetize on offers in the US. And of course, Christmas and New Year are something really cool to have. But keep in mind that all of these events, and even more, will be super crowded. You will be competing against the whole Google Play Store and all the big guys. So you can also think about some less competitive periods when almost nobody really pushes their promotional content or even paid budgets. So for example, January. January is great time to already push some promotional content because everybody exhausted their budget and creativity in December, and now they don't have anything for January, at least until the Lunar New Year. So it's a perfect time to launch your new, let's say, winter holiday event and then promote it widely, try to acquiring the big featuring on the store. Then you also, the time of July, from May to June, before July, from May to June also there are another lot of things happening. And then also after the Independence Day in the US, it's also quite a good time because during the summer holidays you have some events coming from big guys, let's say from 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, but in general, these months aren't that super crowded. And then in September, we have back to school, and afterwards we have a very intense Q4. So this is something that you still want to compete, but don't expect major uplift here because for the seasonality purpose, it's really hard to compete against the big guys during Q4. And also, I wanted to tell you one success story about localization and culturalization. So this is something that we ran last year in Fishing Clash. So in September, at the last week of September, we launched the campaign regarding to Chuseok, which is a Korean Thanksgiving. We launched a new fishery, which is always a big thing in Fishing Clash when it comes to both revenue and engagement. And here, specifically, we targeted to launch it in this particular week at the beginning of it. And we also added a special battle pass when you could acquire a lot of vanity items that we know that our Korean audience love. And everything was localized, everything was culturalized. And what are the results? So, for example, our featuring uplift so this one from the Explorer was plus 128. So as you remember, our average was around 100%. So it was the best moment of the year when it comes to Korea and featuring uplift. But also monetization went really nice. So for example, IRPU, organic IRPU from these new cohorts coming from this week was plus over 400%. Then, when you look at the revenue per install, only from organic, only from these Korean cohorts from this week, was plus 39. Okay, that's maybe not super impressive, but remember that the Chuseok was running for the whole week. And if you look at organic RPI at day 7, it was once again the uplift of plus 400%. Of course, this is an estimation. Like I said, you can't really directly merge your financial data with promotional content data. But from our model and our experience, we believe that this is quite close to what we really had. And yeah, it looks quite sweet. Then I also wanted to touch base on something like common issues that you have when you work with promotional content. And for example, Japanese and Korean languages are still they're quite problematic, let's say, because from time to time we see warnings, we see issues that our promotional content doesn't meet the guideline, and that's it. And we want to do some kind of explanation, okay, why it doesn't meet the guideline. And Google Play doesn't respond. Or they respond that, okay, it doesn't meet the guideline because it doesn't meet the guideline. And we would like to work it out, of course, we would like to fix it, but we can't really tell how. Text on images. You can only have text in your descriptions and taglines, but not on images. Sometimes it's also quite problematic, especially if you work with some third-party brands that are logos with that they have logos with text. Then you have also not accurate information about offers. You also have to remember that when it comes to offers, the review process is much stricter than with events or updates. So when it comes to events and updates, you can be a little bit more poetic, you can be a little bit more generic, but when it comes to offers, no. If you want to have a 25% discount on this chair on Sunday, this is something that you have to convey in your message. That's it, period. Nothing extra. Then, wrong date and time formatting. This is also a newbie issue, but it happens. Because you have internally in your docs, you have different time zones. And here on the Google Play console, you always have your date in UTC, so you have to remember to convert it appropriately. So otherwise, people might see your offers or events in a not proper day or time, and they might not be happy about it. You just create some extra buzz in your support team. Then, too short tagline. It happens also mostly for Japanese and Korean and Chinese languages because they are by nature a bit shorter. So if you have your taglines, then think about to fill them with the whole 80 characters. Otherwise, or create something specific for Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, because otherwise you might see this warning, and then your visibility for users of these languages can be limited. Then mixed languages, and this is an interesting example. Sometimes Google automatic review thinks that your language is not something that it really is. So, for example, here we have a Jage Yosemite Coyoten, which is in German for hunt a coyote from Yosemite. But for some reason, Google review thought that it's in Japanese. I don't know why. Maybe it sounds a little bit. The resolution for these issues is just add more text in German, and then it solves the issue. Then, usage of abbreviations. Google Play review doesn't like abbreviations. So if you work with third-party brand like NBA or NFL, it's problematic. Usually you see a warning, and sometimes you can contact support and tell them, hey, this is not something that we abbreviated because we wanted, but because we have this brand collaborations. And by the way, in your guidelines, you can see that abbreviations are possible to use with your third-party collaborations, third-party brand collaborations, but for some reason they still can be highlighted here as a warning. And then this is also related. Usage of third-party brands. Sometimes they are shown as a warning, as an issue, because you use something that you might not have rights to use. And one time it resulted with us that we have to communicate with the support and show them a license from our third-party brand holder that we have rights to use it. But it's problematic. There's like no native way to really solve it. And that's most of it that we had for today. So I wanted to summarize with this beautiful view on one of the Greek constructions, because it's a perfect reference for the topic of this presentation. So promo content can be a pillar of your organic growth. It can't really work on its own, because like you said in our examples, if you have only promotional content and you have bad quality, if you have no really download velocity from UA or something, it doesn't provide you a significant uplift. But it can be a perfect pillar, one of the many pillars that you have in your growth strategy. If you have your paid acquisition budget at some level, if you work with influencers, for example, if you work with social media, and if you have some ASO updates, you remember the one that drove promotional content numbers even higher, it can do wonders. So think about combining all of this with promotional content, and I think that you can have quite a good result overall. There's just one additional thing that you have to be worried about, maybe. I don't know if it's really a worry, but promotional content is still in closed beta. So if you're not there yet, then you have to meet some specific criteria that are related to either your DAU or your revenue. If you're part of one of the Google developer program, this criteria can be reduced to much softer version, much easier. But in general, if you're not in promotional content program right now, you can apply for it, and then you can use it. Otherwise, you have to wait for the full release, which doesn't have the official ETA. I heard some rumors it should be later this year, but this is just unofficial rumors. So take it with a grain of salt, and yeah, and that's generally it. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation and you learn a lot about promotional content today. and maybe you will be able, thanks to that, also make it a part of your organic growth strategy. Thank you.